Welcome to another Airbrush Asylum video. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how I airbrushed Frankenstein using some templates by AirShot Stencils. Let's get into the tutorial right now. So I'm going to be airbrushing this Frankenstein artwork on this aluminium composite panel. I've just scuffed it up a little bit with some sandpaper, 800 wet and dry. You can see here I've got some of the Frankenstein templates by AirShot Stencils. I'm going to use a variety of these to create my design. What I want to do first is I'm going to build a bit of texture around the artwork. So I want to use a bit of Paynes Grey, and I'm just going to lightly dust, very, very lightly, and that gives us a bit of an outline. And now I know how far to go with the Paynes Grey, and actually tone right over it now. I'm not too worried about overspray, I'll clean that up later. I just want to get a basic underlying tone, and then I'll build my colours on top of that. Coming in with a texture template now, I'm just going to texture up the edges so you can move the template to get a softer texture, or lift it up or lay it flat for a sharper one. So play around with it and you can achieve lots of different effects from that same template. Go right around the border. Pretty rough and ready with this, which is fine. Add some other tones in a second. But just want to get rid of that plain black. I'm just going to go ahead now as well and spatter with the Paynes Grey. Again, angling that airbrush down towards the front of the spatter tool for finer spatters and further away for larger ones. Again, just building up a bit of texture. Now brightening up the edges with some white and the texture template. Again, spattering, this time with the white, just a couple of spots. Just really like to get a bit of grain in there. And if it goes on here, it doesn't really make a difference. That'll all disappear as I paint over it. Now coming in with an over-thinned white, just going to add a few drips in, some heavier sections with a brush, just to add a bit more effect to the background, and just coming up with a baby wipe and wiping off where the Frankenstein will be. So I don't want a big paint drip in there. If it builds up a bit of texture like that, that's not a problem. Just want some drips in the background mainly. So trying to control it as best as I can. Okay, so now that my texturing is dry, I'm going to coat over it with some transparent red violet. And just toning over that, building it up. It's just going to add a little bit of colour, which is cool, which will just frame the piece. Just sprayed a bit of spray adhesive on the back of the template. I'm going to wait till that goes tacky. And I'm just going to put the negative on first, line up the template, and then I'm going to leave a few of these Paynes Grey sections because they're the darker parts of the Frankenstein. But what I want to do is I want to get a little bit of that green as a light base coat underneath some of those darker areas, because then I'll shade over the top of those. I just don't want to go as heavy, and even just under here as well. Again, not as bright because that's part of the darker shading. These parts of the hair I'm going to leave. I'll just do a nice sort of mid coat on here, feathering it down. I'm going to lift this part of the template so I can expose the forehead. carefully dust in around here just to get a bit of green moving up on that section. Now putting the positive mask into place, I'm going to define a couple of these other areas and just brighten them up a bit. So now I've added some white. What I'm going to do is, just to knock the intensity down a little bit, I'm just going to put a few drops of that pre-mixed skin colour in there, the green. Mix that up, and that's just going to take a bit of that edge off. While I've got this white and some of these templates are in place, I'm just going to make the most of it. Just going to hit a bit of a highlight along here, also stipple it out a bit. I'm going to come in freehand in a minute. I just want to get some of these key areas in. I'm going to remove this mask. Still not looking like Frankenstein yet, but it will do. So just put a glove on just so I can rest on the surface now and really start to add some of this detail in, coming back into some of these areas freehand. While I've got it, I'm just going to use this brighter tone for the bolts. You can see even it's got that tint of the green, it's still bright enough. Lay these in nice and bright, and then I'll render them to make them look metallic a bit later on. Okay, so I'll remove this mask now. I'm going to use this one here just to add in some of the darker detailing. So you can see we've got a bit of the Frankenstein shape forming now. So now I'm going to line this template up. So a little bit tricky to line up without rego marks, but we'll make it work. Oh yeah, I can see now. And then I would actually do a bit of a flip method, just to make sure that you're in the right spot. Okay, mask up around it. And this time I'm going to spray transparent black, not too heavy. So I'm going to go freehand over it anyway. Just want to get a basic outline. You can do a bit of a heavier shadow here. So obviously if you see a very sharp area on your reference, then follow that up with a sharp spot on the artwork. So effectively just paint what you see. I know that sounds very easy, but it's pretty much what you've got to do. Luckily we've got the green eraser here, so you can see I'm not very happy with that. That should actually come down. So you can come in and use that green to erase the section that you're not happy with. Again, like dusting first, can always go darker. Just want to pick up a little bit of that template. Same here. This part here I'm just going to brighten up because that's a lighter part of the neck. Alright, let's have a look. It's getting better, looking more like Frankenstein. Start to add some detail with this texture template here. This is the School of Realism template, the Dispersion Snap. I like to spray through it and drag it. Gives you a really nice organic texture. You can lay it flat for defined dots. So I'm just going to lay that in first. Again, just subtle textures, just to resemble that skin, instead of just having a flat object. So to create this freehand texturing, I'm just up nice and close with the airbrush, moving my trigger finger back and forth, essentially stippling with the brush. And I'm just going ahead following my reference and pulling out all of the brightest highlights. Getting in some of these wrinkles and textures around the eye. I'm going to work back over this edge. It'll soften up. I'm just knocking out some of that harshness from that stencil with the highlight. But then when I come into shade as well, that'll also help to eliminate that section. Dust a bit of green back over those ears. I can fix them when I come back in with the darker tone. Just another bit of a skin tone patch. Okay, coming in with some moss green. Further detailing. So wherever that texture is more defined, I'm up closer, and that's going to give me a darker texture, which is what I want in certain spots. This also breaks it up a little bit. You can see I'm running it really thin, and you can see when it's really thin you can actually spider it out, and it gives you like a nice texture spot with a really sharp defined edge, which is kind of cool. Coming in with the red violet again, going to tone the shirt. Also tone over some of the wounds. A little bit under the eye. Okay, come back in with the white highlights just to brighten them back up a little bit before I do my dark tones. I'm still using that white mixed with green. If I think it needs solid white highlights, then I can always come in with that afterwards if I have to. I'm going to start detailing with a sepia mixed with black and transparent base. I want to be real accurate and defined with these textures and tones and shadows. Add in the hair with this colour as well. So if this is the first time watching one of our videos, then welcome. For all of our regular viewers, welcome back. I do hope that you're enjoying this video tutorial so far. If you are, give it the thumbs up, share it out, and let's build this airbrushing community together. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing, tap on that bell icon, and that'll notify you every time I put out new content. So I'm going to work some of this sepia now in around the wound. So being up nice and close, only pulling back a little bit on that trigger to release the smallest amount of paint. This is the Iwata CMSB Micron. It has a 0.18mm needle nozzle setup, so perfect for getting in all this fine detail. And having that side cup is handy as well because it doesn't obstruct my vision. Adding some of that sepia shading to the ear just to shape it a little bit more. Just going to detail the bolts. I'll create a sharp edge. Come back in with the highlight. Just to brighten up some of these edges, I'm going to come back in with the texture template, just hit that corner. And bring some of that texture down in the sepia. Did a couple of these highlights, just brighten them out a bit. Ones in the eyes that had overspray over them. Just a couple of key spots, just brighten them up. Really get some of that contrast. But only in those real bright areas. Not going over everything again. I just want to tweak this shadow under the nose just to level that up a little bit. So I'm going to bring that out ever so slightly. Here and sharpen this up a little bit. Much better, much happier with that. Now I can go ahead and unmask it, see if any of that dripping effect has gone under the masking tape, which it has. So I have to go clean that up. That's why it's best to have a bit of fine line tape or something like that in there instead. Now here we have the completed Frankenstein artwork airbrushed on this aluminium composite panel. You can see all of the detail in the background, the textures and that grungy effect that was created using the texture templates and the spattering. To continue your learning, be sure to check out some of the other videos and playlists that I've got listed here, and until next time, go grab your airbrush, do some amazing artwork yourself, and I'll see you again very, very soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.